My wife, Rebecca, frequently traveled to London for shopping sprees. It seemed she spent more time away from home each year. Our marriage was barely recognizable, yet I couldn't afford a divorce, and she showed no interest in one either. Over the past 5 years, my software company had thrived after a decade of struggling. Hardware technology finally caught up with my software, leading to explosive business growth. 3 major corporations expressed acquisition interest, and I awaited the optimal offer. The company's valuation now exceeded $10 million, primarily in stock, which I still largely held. 8 years prior, Rebecca commenced employment at a reading law firm. Her salary significantly aided our finances despite her demanding schedule, including frequent overnight trips, even as a junior associate. Consumed by software development, I overlooked her absences. Until then, our relationship had been strong, with an active sex life and genuine companionship, despite my unpredictable work hours. However, after about a year at the firm, things altered. Our intimacy diminished considerably, and our relationship became almost platonic. I was unhappy, attributing it to a temporary phase. Meanwhile, our 2 sons were in high school and largely self-sufficient. Brian prepared for Penn State, and Ryan planned to join the Marines. Rebecca's boss at Caldwell Legal was Jason Anderson. I'd met him and his wife at company events, and he seemed pleasant. One day, Rebecca returned home distraught, revealing Jason's death, murdered by his wife. She offered no further details, but soon quit her job and never worked again. Our marriage didn't improve. She became sullen and argumentative. I struggled to find any positive traits. I avoided her as much as possible, but it proved difficult. To worsen matters, she became pregnant. I hoped a new baby would mend our home life, but it didn't. Rebecca named our daughter Rachel. She showered the baby with affection, but our relationship deteriorated as Rachel grew. Rebecca started spending even more time away. Our company's success enabled us to move into a larger home with staff. Rebecca employed a live-in nanny for Rachel and capitalized on it. I never inquired about her whereabouts or reasons. I only noticed significant expenses. Fortunately, my income outpaced her spending, but I remained troubled. I attempted to discuss our issues, but she refused. Separate bedrooms exacerbated the situation. I was clueless about my failings and how to rectify them. I eventually resigned myself to the situation. A divorce would cost millions and potentially jeopardize the company. I berated myself for allowing things to escalate so drastically. I employed legal counsel, but saw no viable solution. Rachel blossomed into a lovely young girl. I spent as much time with her as possible, despite Rebecca's attempts to keep us apart. Her frequent absences fostered a close bond between Rachel and me. Our secret. Rachel, now in 3rd grade and thriving, enjoyed our time together. I attended parent-teacher meetings and conferences. Rebecca was usually preoccupied. Brian and Ryan were independent and successful. My marriage was disastrous, but my children compensated. Then, unexpectedly, Carol Anderson sat in my office. I was surprised. I believed she was incarcerated for her husband's murder. She looked remarkable. Her shoulder-length hair was a blend of gray, silver, and black. Minimal makeup enhanced her naturally smooth skin. She exuded both strength and femininity. "Carol, this is unexpected. You look well," I said. "Thanks, Kevin. I wasn't sure you'd remember me. It's been 8 years and I expected to be forgotten. Coffee? Black would be fine." "Black." "Carol, I'm in a difficult situation. I understand your circumstances and want to avoid upsetting you. Please correct me if I say anything inappropriate." "Kevin, I've spent 8 years in prison. I'm hardened. Don't worry about my feelings. By the way, how is Mrs. Smith?" "Not something I want to discuss. Let's just say, things could be better. That's why I'm here. I need to talk to you about Rebecca." I placed her coffee, then sat beside my desk instead of behind it. I wanted to hear her story and put her at ease. I contacted my secretary to avoid interruptions. "Kevin, did you follow the trial?" "No." Rebecca mentioned it, but I was preoccupied with the business launch and she wasn't communicative. I assumed her grief was greater than expected. It seems you were oblivious to everything. Much of this will shock you. You said you didn't want to upset me. I feel the same. What I'll tell you isn't pleasant. If it gets too difficult, just say so. We both chuckled slightly. Maybe scotch would have been better than coffee, Carol quipped. On the day I shot Jason, he planned to leave me and elope with Rebecca. He'd stopped by just long enough to give me divorce papers. Your wife waited in the car. They planned to see you afterward. I'd known about their affair for some time and had evidence and photos. The divorce didn't bother me. I was planning the same. Kevin, I had no idea. I was living in my own world. I guess it was my fault, in a way. I'm sorry my failings contributed to your marital problems. There's more, Kevin. Jason always wanted a family. We couldn't have children. He constantly criticized me, blaming me for everything. When he gave me the divorce papers, he said Rebecca was pregnant with his child, the family he'd always wanted. I turned to leave, but he continued insulting me, demeaning me. It seemed endless, and I snapped. I reached for the revolver. I don't remember shooting him. You mean Rachel isn't Jason's daughter? Rachel isn't Jason's daughter, but Rebecca likely believes she is. I had multiple medical checks. Nothing was wrong. I finally tested Jason's sperm. He was sterile. I never told him. Rachel is Jason's mother's name. I assume they chose it. Rebecca picked the name, but I didn't know its origin. She likely believes Rachel is Jason's. Knowing that explains a lot. More coffee? No, but I have more to discuss. Are you sure you have time? We're fine. That's the advantage of being the boss. When I went to prison, our belongings went into storage, including Jason's briefcase. Last week, I found this. Carol handed me the original divorce papers Rebecca intended to give me. The papers were signed, dated, and notarized. Is this still valid? Carol laughed. I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer. Check paragraph 7. She gave me full custody of the children. This would infuriate her. You could get Rachel. The boys are gone, but getting custody of her would drive her mad. Can I have this? It's yours. It's worthless to me. She handed me 2 manila envelopes. The small one contains photos my detective took. They're very explicit. The larger one has my investigator's report and other documents. We sat in silence for a moment. I better go. Thanks for seeing me. I feel better getting this resolved. Any job openings for an ex-con? Seymour Schlamp, my lawyer, was ecstatic about the 8-year-old divorce papers with no expiration date. Rebecca hadn't requested percentages but specific amounts. She wanted $14,000 from our checking and savings accounts, about half the total 8 years prior, but negligible now. Other items were similar. The only snag, she wanted her 1995 Volvo station wagon, which I'd sold 5 years earlier. I had to find that car. Carol Anderson started in software testing, an entry-level position but suitable. It allowed me to see her regularly. I liked Carol and hoped to get to know her better. Rachel and I kept our upcoming DNA test a secret from Rebecca. Seymour needed time to ensure no loopholes existed in the divorce papers. I was confident Rachel was mine. With help, I located the Volvo in State College. A fraternity brother gladly sold it to me for double his purchase price. A week later, I had the title in Rebecca's name. Seymour explained that as long as the divorce request remained unchanged, it was valid. Rebecca's notarized signature was still legal. I signed in my place, and Seymour notarized it. We waited. Time crawled. My relationship with my wife remained strained, but my bond with my daughter strengthened, as did my relationship with Carol. After a month, I persuaded Carol to have lunch with me on a non-work day. It was enjoyable and casual. I reassured her that I wouldn't show interest to other employees. She said our relationship was more important than her job. I felt things were improving but wouldn't rush it. Over the next few weeks, I tried talking to Rebecca. She refused to engage. I didn't tell her divorce petition was being processed. Midweek, Rebecca stormed into my office. "What the hell is this?" she shrieked, throwing papers on my desk. "I believe your 8-year-old divorce request has been finalized." "You can't do this! Everything's changed!" "Just because your lover died doesn't mean we can't proceed. I agreed to your terms. Get a lawyer if you want to contest it, and get your things out of my house. I'll get out, and I'll have this divorce thrown out. You'll pay. Read paragraph 7. You gave me full custody of Rachel. If you try to take her, I'll have you arrested. She raged. Her words screamed. I was stunned. She grabbed the papers and stormed out. The peace was blissful. My secretary brought me coffee, smiling. I spent the afternoon canceling Rebecca's accounts. I called Carol, and she agreed to have supper with Rachel and me. I needed a friendly shoulder. Rachel and Carol spent the night talking. Things weren't going exactly as planned. Seymour called a few days later. Rebecca had obtained legal counsel, and a meeting was scheduled to resolve the divorce issues. A family court judge would arbitrate. Seymour said Rebecca's lawyer seemed less interested in overturning the decree and more in gaining custody of Rachel. I agreed to compromise, but not concede. The meeting started slowly, reviewing Rebecca's demands. Seymour handed over checks, and we endured formal protests. Seymour remained silent. Rebecca was shocked when I slid the Volvo keys and title across the table. The custody issue arose. Rebecca requested to speak. For 8 years, I've endured a loveless marriage for my daughter's sake. I loved Jason Anderson, and I'm proud to have given him the child his wife couldn't. Jason Anderson is my daughter's father, not Kevin Smith. Mr. Smith has no rights to Rachel, and I won't tolerate her being raised by a stranger. I seek sole custody. The judge spoke. Mrs. Smith, are you saying Rachel is the product of an adulterous relationship with Jason Anderson while married to Kevin Smith? Yes, Your Honor. But Jason and I were lovers, soulmates. Rachel is proof of our love, and I don't want Mr. Smith near her. The judge looked at Seymour. Do you have anything to offer? Yes, Your Honor, Seymour said, pushing a report across the table. This report, from approximately 6 weeks prior to Rachel's conception, indicates Jason Anderson had a 0 sperm count. He was sterile. He couldn't father a child. Rebecca paled, her eyes widening. Seymour pushed 3 more papers: Rachel's DNA analysis, Kevin's DNA analysis, and a comparison showing Kevin was undoubtedly Rachel's father. Rebecca was in tears, no longer angry, just crushed. Her lawyer requested a break. Afterward, Rebecca's lawyer conceded custody, requesting visitation. I allowed Rebecca to have Rachel every other weekend and 2 holidays a year. I returned to work, leaving Seymour to finalize the paperwork. I couldn't believe how inexpensive it was. If Rebecca had been a better partner, I would have shared more. I hadn't failed her materially or emotionally, yet I'd somehow fallen short. I never understood what Jason Anderson had that I lacked. Carol's pictures didn't reveal him to be physically exceptional. I gave Rebecca copies of the pictures and investigation, including reports of Jason's meetings with other women. The divorce left me feeling like a failure. Rachel and Carol provided solace. Rebecca moved in with Jason's mother. They'd become friends. The arrangement didn't work well for Rebecca. She began selling jewelry and clothes to support herself. She moved to live with her sister in Norristown. Rebecca initially picked up Rachel every weekend, but soon made excuses. The calls became more frequent and the reasons weaker until they ceased entirely. Rachel didn't seem to mind. Carol and I compensated. We spent more time together and started feeling like a family. Carol moved in, and we married before Christmas. Rebecca was on a Caribbean cruise, unable to get Rachel. The arrangement suited everyone. 2 weeks later, I had the custody addendum removed. Around that time, my company was bought, resulting in substantial wealth. Carol was thrilled, not just financially, but also because she was pregnant for the first time. Life was finally good. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.